My Instagram was being really weird. I'm sorry I'm a little bit late. I'm going to grab a drink. I'm going to let everybody roll in. Hang tight. In a minute, we're going to watch Layla wake up from a nap and be like, what? And be mad that I didn't fix her dinner. All right, let's see. Let's see who's in here waiting. Anybody? Do I need to remind Denise? I had that other chat today, so it was like, today is jam-packed. Okay, let me... messages with Denise, though, to know. Oh, she's here, okay. It's like maybe she said something to me and I haven't looked. When will I learn, Denise?
I mean, do you have to remind me? Oh, of course you don't have to remind me.
I know, that was dumb. I don't know why I said that. Hi, everybody.
Hey, guys. How are you?
Oh, my gosh. I'm so good.
You want to come up here?
Excellent. Where are you in the country, Caroline?
What's that?
Where are you in the country?
I'm in Houston, Texas.
All right.
Yes.
Excellent. A little warm there, huh?
It is warm, but I decided we're going to wear a hoodie and turn the AC down right now. it's just too hot out, but I needed to get comfy, so
there you go.
So that's what we're doing now.
A little comfort.
Yeah. Comfort, yeah. My little security blanket, And then I got this guy right here.
Somebody asked me that once, because I like to be bundled. And they said, is it because you're cold or is it for comfort? And it was like, I never thought about that before. It's for comfort. It's not about temperature. I like to be swaddled.
I feel that too, and I think Onyx likes that also, because she will lay on me and I give her a big hug and she will stay there and she just likes a big old grasp. You know what I mean? But no, I'm for comfort too. Honestly, I like it. So, but how are you guys?
I'm great. But before we start, we all need to smile really nicely into the camera so that we can take our screenshot.
Did you get it?
Otherwise, I
did. You get it?
I'm fast.
Oh.
You should see. I'm fast at catching screenshots and catching dog urine. Like, you would not even believe the speed at which I can.
You get it under there. You slide it under.
Put it under the microscope, and that's it.
All right. So now we got some hidden talents.
Yeah, it's one of my real attractive hidden talents.
Now I'm going
to Caroline, would you please introduce yourself for everyone so that they can hear who you are straight from you?
Yes. Well, first, thank you both. I love that zoom in right there. That was that was good. How did you do that even? I see.
See, look. If something is like,
I didn't even know you could do. Oh my god!
Ooh,
I didn't know you got emphasize how really.
And you just exactly like that. That means you're having a thought. Like
that means you're having a thought. Oh my gosh, that's good. I like that. That's a good thing. So, well, thank you both so much for having me. I mean, seriously, this is like crazy even talking to you guys. So I feel so blessed getting to just sit here for a little bit and chat about some stuff. But yeah, so my name's Caroline. I am from Houston, Texas, and I've been working with dogs now and their people for about 6 years now. And so, like you guys know, just kind of been through everywhere with as far as techniques go. So, oh, look at what he said. That's so nice of him. But anyways, yeah. So I have I've grown up with German Shepherds. My whole family has had that type of dog breed as our thing, kind of. Recently, a couple years ago, we decided to get a terrier, and wow, that was a very different type of dog for us. Very fun. But yeah, so that's kind of what I knew first about dogs. And then my aunt is actually the one who got me interested in training a little bit, because she was a professional dog trainer in Germany and Panama. And so she did family dogs, but her thing more so was just like Schutzhund type. So that was her thing. And she had bred these awesome German Shepherds. She was into all of that stuff. and I almost got one from her, but then I got blessed with the best down here, this little girl, well, big girl, I guess, big girl down here. So Onyx is my baby, and she's the one who actually has taught me everything. So yeah, that's a little bit about my background, I guess, a little bit.
Excellent. I would love to hear more about how you ended up sort of going from KPA, which is a pretty hardcore force-free philosophy, because
Yeah.
I went the other way. And so I
Right.
kind of know where I was coming from. And I'm so curious to know your journey, because I don't know if you remember this, but you and I had some correspondence where I was telling you, like, just slow down, my friend, just slow down,
Yeah.
because you've been a little bit sharp.
I
And
do.
you
Yeah.
took it really well. And then now and then time went by, and I said, oh wait, we got some evolution going on. So I'm just super curious. What happened? What were you seeing or hearing? What was that like? Where were you? Where are you now? What's the story?
Yeah. So KPA, so my aunt, the one that I just brought up, she's the one who had pushed me to do KPA. She did Star Mark, I think,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Academy, but and I had brought that up to her, and I was like, should I do that? And she was like, she's like, she actually steered me towards KPA, and I'm glad she did. It was a good school, for what, as a baby trainer, trying to learn things. And it gave me a really good eye for some stuff, and try to be creative, and shaping, capturing, targeting was the main thing. And I did it with Onyx as well. And no luring, though, no luring. So I didn't have that skill until way later. So it was no luring. But I really did like what I learned from like a trainer perspective. And it was good for that. What was hard, what I noticed at the beginning, kind of the first year or two of my training journey, was trying to put that into practice with clients. Just shaping, capturing, targeting was pretty hard, for the clients, but I thought it was important, right? And it still is important, of course. But you know trainers with their own dogs, what I was seeing was, we have the eye, we have the time, we have more of the education, so it's easier for us. And it's more difficult, right, for just your everyday pet parent, to kind of comprehend those things. And so I was trying to put it all into practice, and it was getting tricky. But at the same time, while I was doing KPA, which I don't know if I've ever said this part before, but I was doing KPA, and I was working for a company that did not use food reward
Ooh.
ever. I know, yeah, didn't use any food rewards, and then they only used slip leads. And so I was like in these two worlds at the same time. You know what I mean? And so I was like, what's going on? Like, this company's telling me one thing, my school is telling me another thing. Like, I'm so confused. So, um, kind of at the same time too, I had just gotten Onyx, and so I was like, I'm gonna implement what I'm learning from the school onto her, right, while I go do my job and do that stuff. So I was literally doing two things, two different polar things. And while I was doing that, I was really happy with the results I was getting with Onyx, because of course, right, it was more relationship engagement, a lot more fun for both of us, really teaching her a lot of things, slowing down. We took it really slow. But then I guess down the road, so I had left that company. Our views didn't align at that time, and I was like, yeah, I'm not really feeling that. And then I worked for a different company in Houston who did use food rewards, who did use toys. They do all those things, but they implemented leash pressure, that was kind of new to me, because the other place I worked at, it was just correction based with the slip weight. So how everybody has their own thing, right? So this leash pressure stuff was kind of new to me, and I was like, okay, I don't know, I didn't do any of that with her, right? I was like, what is this? And so they were teaching me about that a bit. But again, because I had done KPA and I was still KPA certified, I was like, oh man, I can't work for you guys. I was like, oh. And I didn't know that they were doing that until I had already accepted the job and gotten into it, and all that stuff. So I didn't know. So I had to leave that job too, because then it was breaking KPA's code, right? Where it was like, oh, you're not allowed to do that. So I was like, I just got the certification, paid for it. I don't want to lose it, right? So I had to leave them. And so then I found a different company. So I bounced around, a little bit. So I found a different company, and we definitely aligned, where it was, we're not going to use any kind of form of, any positive punishment, any kind of stuff like that, or we're not going to use leash pressure. We're going to use solely reward-based training, and also like harnesses. We did use gentle leaders, and no slip leads, no prong collar, no e-collar, none of that stuff. So I did that for 3.5 years, actually. So I stuck there for 3.5 years, had a great time. It was going well. Taught group classes, did a lot of private lessons, did reactivity, and then puppies. And so that was the main thing. The group classes were a lot of puppies and adolescent dogs, and then specifically a reactive group class. Learned a lot, saw the dogs progress, greatly. It was a good time. The owners had a lot of fun. The dogs were having a fun time. But then once I started, I think what happened too a little bit was when I started to get on Instagram, right? Was when I started connecting with a lot of trainers, around the world, right? And most of them force-free trainers. And we were, we'd talk, we'd chat, how are you doing this? How are you doing that? Yada, yada, yada. And that was going well for a bit. But that is how I really learned these terms like force-free and balanced, right? Was by getting on the internet, and I was like, oh, and then there was just this whole war and debate going on all the time. And I fell for it, right? You guys, right? We all fought for it. We fought for it, and you just start talking crap, right, left and right, and you think you're better than everybody because you don't use tools and stuff. And that's where I
Denise
was
calls
for a while.
it the evangelize. What do you call it, Denise? The
Oh,
The
evangelizing
evangelical
period.
phase. Yeah. The
Yeah.
evangelical
yes,
phase.
right. So I was stuck there, right? So I was
Yeah.
stuck there for quite some time, and it was so wrong of me to do that, right? And I look back on it now and I'm like, that was so embarrassing. Blech, like gross, right? I don't like that I was like that, but that's where I was. And when you're surrounded, by your little community, that's what you do, right? And so
You get,
I was stuck there for a bit.
you're encouraged.
You're encouraged,
You encourage each
right?
other.
It's
Right. So,
reinforcing.
There's a lot of
absolutely.
reinforcing. Yeah.
Yeah. So, that was not good, not good. And I would literally bash other trainers, you know what I mean? Because I'm like, oh, like you're using tools, how dare you, because that's all I knew, right? Like from KPA, from this other company I was at. And so that's just where it was. But then I started watching, I was like, let me kind of look around. Let me open my eyes a little bit, look around a little more. What are these trainers actually doing? Like, let me see the dogs that they're working with. Let me not just see the tool, right? I was like, let me not just see the tool. Let me look at what they're doing. And I kind of found like, yeah, they love these dogs. They love these owners. Like they're really trying to help these dogs and these owners. And I think kind of like where the shift started too was the place that I was at was very dog centered, right? Where it was like this kind of mentality that the dog is always coming first, right? Like the human welfare kind of gets pushed away is what it seemed like for those kind of like 3.5 years that I was training. So it was hard for the owner, but I just kind of didn't think about that, right? And when I was there, I was like, it's the dog, that matters. So then when I started watching all these other trainers, I kind of noticed that they were more centered on the human and dog, right? Where both of you matter, right? And I was kind of level playing field, if that makes sense. And I just saw the results too, I think that they were getting. And then I kind of would sit there and I'm like, how our training programs were, we didn't have board and train. We didn't have like a prolonged training thing with these dogs. We'd see them for group class and like 3 or 6 private lessons, right? So I never fully saw like results with these dogs, which kind of bothered me at some point in my career because I was like, I want to see where these dogs kind of end up. Like, are the training tactics working? Like, I don't know, right? And so that kind of bothered me a bit. And I'd see all these other trainers spending a lot of time with these dogs and people, and I was like, I kind of want that, I think, And so just to kind of see what's working, what doesn't work, blah 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 blah. And so as I started to kind of branch out, it took like 2 years, by the way, for me to kind of start, inching and seeing what other people are doing and implementing those things and learning about those things. And I bought online classes, I watched a bunch of things and stuff and did the education that I needed to. And yeah, and then I think when I put that slip lead video out, everybody kind of got upset. Right. And so I was
Don't
like,
slip
okay, well,
lead.
yeah. So I was like, all right, well, you know, but I guess other turning points. I mean, there were so many things along the road, and one of them too for my personal life with Onyx was when I got my Chihuahua, and I was like, I and my like living situation changed. Everything was changing around, right? So time and commitment was kind of changing, and I was like, how can I walk these two together? You know what I mean? How can I, like, there's got to be a way. Like, I'm a professional dog trainer. I should be able to walk these two dogs together, right? I was like, come on. But so I was thinking about it, and I try Onyx on the both of them on the long line running around. They're fine sometimes, but sometimes it was just we'd be walking. I'd been working on Onyx's healing, right, for years with, just force-free methods, and she was good, alone. Um, but once I implemented Tiki, I knew things would regress, my Chihuahua. So I was like, let's go back. Lots of reinforcement, right? Onto Onyx and whatever. And there were just so many moments where I would lose control of her, right? And that was worrying me because she would step on the Chihuahua, and I was like, oh, this is bad, right? There was about 4 or 5 times she had accidentally stepped on her, because we're not allowed to, like, or when force free ish, right, we can't like tug on the leash or anything like that. You're not supposed to, like, do all these things, whatever. So I decided, I was like, let me try a slip lead with her. She hated the gentle leader, right? Hated that thing. Alligator roll. I tried to desensitize her to it. Not
Oh my
happening.
goodness, poor thing.
Not happening, right? She hated it so much. And I was taught, and originally gentle leader is better than slip lead, right? That's what supposedly was the standard. So no, she hated it, and I was like, that's not right. She doesn't like it. I'm not doing that to her. And so I tried the slip lead with her, and I found I had more control a little bit, just because it's a little bit higher. And so I was like, okay, like, and she kind of knows her heel, yay. And we had a fantastic walks for a while, and it was good. But of course, that conflicted with my job, right? Because my job, we were not allowed to do that. So there was conflict there, not going well. But I was like, look, it's okay. Like, she's happy. She's still getting fed. Like, like, all these things are good. And then my life is easier now, whatever. But no, it was not okay. So anyway, I don't know if I'm losing off the track here, but
No,
I'll stop
no,
there
you're
for
doing
a
fine.
second. But that's kind of where it went, started to go.
I want
Right,
to ask a question about something that you said, because it's something that Denise talks about, and then I'll let Denise elaborate on what it is.
Sure.
So you said I put the slip lead on, and I had more control.
Mm.
So Denise, will you talk about leverage versus control and that language? And I'll let you do that.
I don't know
okay. Let me say more. Let
referring
me say
to.
more. You put a podcast out several episodes ago where you were talking about the basic terminology around dog training. If we're going to train dogs, we need to know what basic words mean. And then you talked about leverage. And it's a word that I don't hear used a lot, but I do hear control. And I wonder if sometimes we're not misusing that word accidentally as trainers.
Yes. So, I mean, I know what I've said is the further attached the thing is to the front, the more leverage you have. So if you put something on a dog's nose, a ring or whatever, you actually have a lot of control because the head goes first. Otherwise, the dog would literally have to turn around and pull you with their butt, right? That's why head halters provide so much leverage. Now, it's interesting you said you tried a head halter and that it was a misery, because straight control, in my opinion, of all the tools out there, head halters should give you the most leverage because
Right.
of where it's attached. And then one balances that out against the fact that some dogs, even with significant conditioning, absolutely dislike the tool, and you can see in their body language sort of ongoing distress behaviors, at which point you have to hopefully look at what we talk about as positive reinforcement trainers, which is what is the dog telling you. So yes, believe me, I'm a pretty big advocate for a head halter. I really do like them. Strong dogs, I find them often quite effective.
Right.
And then the next thing back is high on the neck. You're going to have more leverage than low on the neck. Halters, harnesses. Now, before somebody flips out and says, I said halters or harnesses teach pulling. I'm not saying that, but listen carefully. Because of where they're positioned on the back, the dog has the most ability to go in different directions, left, right. You really have the least actual control of what you care about, which is probably the teeth. And the dog, if they do go leaping off in some random direction, a dog on a harness is most likely to take you down because there's nothing stopping that movement. A dog with a head halter is the least likely to take you down because they're going to take it in the head. Is that a good thing? Well, maybe not. But the point is, I mean, it's all, you could decide who you care about in any given circumstance. And, are you more worried about the human going flying? Not like a kite, by the way, because I remember once my dog, I was set up to do fly ball with him, and I let him go, and I got the leash wrapped around me. I did not fly like a kite.
Oh boy.
Oh,
I went straight into the ground.
yeah, that sounds like
the
a
ground.
burn.
There's no flying. No, you just go, your face hits the ground, and you're like, crap, that was not a kite.
Right.
But anyway, so I talk about that, I want enough leverage that I can control my dog under a variety of circumstances. And I do have a thing about safety. So my personal choice is never to, I simply can't own a dog that is so large that if things got grim, that I could not physically stop the dog. It's important to me. And I don't walk my two dogs together.
Yep.
I mean, on rare occasions, I can, but I don't like to. I find it very stressful for a lot of reasons. I'm also very worried about other people's dogs. So if I had both of my dogs with me, there's all kinds of things I can't do that I can do easily with one of them. But that is my answer. There's trade-offs, right? So that's the one I made. I'm not faulting your choices. I'm just saying that my choice was the two together. I don't feel I have enough control to guarantee. I'm not talking about the 99%. I'm talking about the 1%. When I leave my house with my dog, I'm always thinking about the 1%. I'm always thinking of where am I going? What is my dog wearing? Which might be a halter, but usually it's a flat collar. So my mind always goes to the 1% because that's what I'm concerned about. Otherwise, they would just always be off leash, right? Because they're really pretty good. They're just with me. So I have to say within a given circumstance, what is the 1%? And kind of what's the best case scenario? What's the worst case scenario? And in spite of the fact that I do take risks that many people won't take of all sorts, I let my dogs run off leash. I mean, that's one I won't take. I won't take a safety risk I would not take a dog out of a house that was of a size that I didn't feel that I could stop its forward momentum should the 1% happen.
Right.
Is that kind of what you were thinking about, Jerri? Is that the conversation?
Yeah,
or was it a different one?
I want to break down some of the terms that I think we're taking for granted and using just in common language and not really explaining these concepts. The tool conversation, especially around, like, let's push out just for second prongs and e-collars, but just general tools we use on our dogs. People are still like, oh my God, teach me how to use that slip lead, and then it'll be like that. Teach me how to use, but do like, let me have this harness, and then and it's like, that's not, it's about leverage. It's about safety.
Yeah.
It's about the ability to redirect. So for example, when I first start working with people with reactive dogs, we are not using back clip harnesses because Lord, we need to backpedal. And you're not going to teach a dog effective backpedaling with that it just is weird to me.
Yeah, so you can't turn the front.
Yeah, like let's either clip it on the front or let's go ahead and use a martingale or a flat collar or a slip lead or something to teach this skill. And then we can, when we're really confident, we can go back to our harness when we're not having these reactions. I take a lot of risks too with my dog. But I also am just like Denise, and I'm head on a swivel, 1%. I have played out every scenario. Last night, I was riding my bike. In the summer, Enzo and I ride our bike at night. So it's cool that there's nobody on the streets. It's perfect. Well, I don't know if y'all have ever ridden around a small town at night, but the cats come out. The cats, they come out and they sit. And they're saying something to each other that I don't understand what it is.
They're like this.
They're like this, waiting to steal your breath when you close your eyes. And last night I was coming across just by near a little ballpark. There would be no reason for a cat to be there. I purposely stay away from driveways because because there's cats and there was just a cat. Yeah. There's just a cat. And Enzo, I have a crossbody lead. And he's on like a 10-foot lead. And I see that cat and I know, holy shit. And that's exactly
You're not going like a kite. You're going to go.
I'm going. I'm going and there's going to be asphalt burns.
Yep.
And I don't have back brakes on this bike. I only
Oh,
have front brakes. So if he
God.
pulls, I'm a,
Yeah.
and I know all of this within 1 second because I
Right.
have played these scenarios out in my head.
Of course.
And so
Yeah.
I plant my feet and I just told him very firmly, whoa, like no or something. I don't even remember what I said. And he
Yeah.
stopped enough for me to get just that little bit of leverage and then redirect him, bump, 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 bump the leash, and it's fine.
There you
But
go.
if I didn't think that that could happen at any moment, I would have been gone. I would have been, and that's it. And so I get that we also need to think very carefully about the size of the dogs we have given our physical ability. And I don't mean that in an ableist way. I mean that in, let's just be realistic.
Let's be real. My girlfriend wants, I hope she's not watching this right now, but my girlfriend wants a bull mastiff one day. And I looked at her and I said, I'm 5 foot, right? I'm like, you want me to walk that thing? I'm like, no, ma'am. Yeah. I'm like, let's get another chihuahua, but like, so realistically, yes, like, we know like our limits, right? And like what we're capable of, what we can do, what's safe, I guess. But yeah, no, that I'm glad you're safe. I'm glad you didn't
Me
take it down.
Me too.
Yeah.
I just know what my dog is. I know what
Right.
he is. I know that he has a really high prey drive. And as much as we work on it, if he hadn't been on leash, he would have chased that cat. And that's one of the few things that I don't have 100%. And so at night, I don't ride with him without the leash. During the day, I would, and I wouldn't have that issue. But so you just, I make adjustments for what I think the risk is versus the reward. It's that cost benefit analysis that we talk about a lot.
Right. Yeah. Oh, go ahead, Denise. Yeah.
Well, I was thinking I think this is what you were thinking about. The other thing is, in addition to leverage, there are aversive tools. And that's the one the dog works away from. So I don't call a head halter an aversive tool. I call it a leverage tool. But dog decide, right? So if the dog is like, this is sufficiently miserable when I pull against it that I'm not going to pull against it, then it would be an aversive tool. If the dog is like the same wearing it, whether it's pulling or not, then it's not an aversive tool. It's just on the dog. So it's going to kind of depend what the dog does with that information. Is it a leverage tool or an aversive tool? I think it's going to depend on the dog.
Yeah,
somebody
totally.
in the chat has said something worth interrupting for. These situations are 1% of the time for you guys, but for many average dog owners, it's a far higher possibility.
Yep.
Yeah, that's something great to address. So what I like to tell my clients when they start working with me is that we need to stop with the I'm living a regular life with my dog. We need to stop with the I'm just going to go on walks down the street and I'm going to put him in the car and I'm going to let him bark in the backyard and we're just going to keep looping this behavior while you wait for me to tell you this trick that's going to take to fix the dog. The thing I spend the most time talking to clients about is to scale it back. If Denise and Caroline and I are saying that we're out there with our dogs who we train a lot and we're living this particular life, I just want to encourage everybody to not watch basketball and try to be Kobe Bryant. It's okay to say I love basketball and I really like to learn from Kobe. I really like to learn from, I don't know any women's basketball players' names. Oh my God, Caitlin Clark.
Yeah.
I mean, shame on me.
Clark, come on.
It's okay for me to want to learn from Caitlin Clark, but I can't expect to just be like her from just listening and learning. I think that's another component of it too when you mention that this is for the average dog owner. Yeah, because I think that the average dog owner is putting their dogs in situations that they shouldn't be in. And so that's part of, our message, I think all of us, that we want to educate a little more about that.
I mean,
but great comment.
Yeah, that was a good one. Like even that 1% thing, like, prey drive issues, right? Like everybody's dealing with that, probably on their walks and whatnot. You see a squirrel every 5 seconds or a cat, and I did kind of, I guess, going back to like kind of the more force-free kind of way. I did a ton of predation substitute training with Onyx and with Simone, right? Simone Mueller. And I love, oh, Angel Reese. I saw someone say Angel Reese. Yes. Oh,
Exactly. I'm
Camila.
like,
Sorry, now we're
duh.
talking women's basketball. Now I'm distracted. Okay, but anyways, I did a ton of that and I loved it, right? It was awesome for Onyx and I to do predation substitute training, and really beautiful thing, to see her change, right? From like, hey, oh, I see a squirrel, and it becomes a cue to sit, right? And that was the main basis of that. And for her and I just kind of wanted to take it a step further. And, we had so much fun using not the entire, I should say, not the entire predatory sequence. She's not killing animals. But, she's going to chase and then, pre-macking and all that good stuff. But yes, for the everyday pet parent, that is so hard, like it's so hard to comprehend. And I wish people, they had more time or resources or whatever, to really get there. Because when you can get that with a dog, without any kind of tools or anything like that, it is really cool. But if you have, for me now, if you have to use tools to achieve certain things, but you're doing it in like a very educational, very methodical way, that's where that's where I've shifted, right? Where I'm like, I get it, right? Like, I get it. You're not a dog trainer fully, right? Like, you might need a little bit of, a little bit of leverage here to help you, right? And that's where I'm like, okay with it. Because then I started training her. Like we kind of said too, like you said, Jerry, I think with your dog, there are times where he might go after, right? The prey. And of course, right, any dog would, whether they're e-collar trained or not, like they certainly can. And one time she did. And I was like, oh man, I'm scared now. I was like, I'm a little nervous about that.
Yeah.
And so I just wanted to take it a little step further for me and her, just as another layer to have in leverage, right? And so I worked really hard to try to properly e-collar train her for that, because I was like, I just want, that feeling that in case shit hits the fan, I might have a backup form, and so for us, it works. And I know not everybody wants to do that, and that's totally fine by me. I'm like, you don't have to. But that's partially how I started e-collar training, was with her on that, to kind of go down my route of where I'm at now. For you, Denise, to kind of answer your question way back then. But yeah. So, oh, there he is. There's the man of the hour. Oh, are you muted, Denise?
I was.
Am I?
No, I don't think you,
Oh, no, you're
you
not.
are.
You're
I
not.
was, because I thought Enzo was going to come in borking.
I do try to keep it muted. Otherwise, it's actually not my dogs. It's my family. My family's really loud. I
was
swear
just
to God,
doing.
it's terrible. So I have
I'm
to
like,
mute for them. But they're all on their best behavior right now, frankly, because they're not here. But I mean, so I'm in the habit of keeping things on mute, and then I can not worry about bothering you. And so anyway,
somebody asked the question, how well does the e-collar work long term for you?
Well, I think since we had done so much work with PST, the predation substitute training, right? And this was just another layer, all that combined, I think, it's kind of creating just this whole safety net, I guess. But long term, I guess, I have it on her when we go out now, just in case, right? But I'm rarely using it. It's just there, right? And it's because we've done the e-collar, right? It's just, you can't slap it on, right? And it's going to do the magic. You have to do all the training. And what I've found is a lot of the training that's effective, right, is let's pre-mac. Let's do that. Eat your veggies and then you get your dessert. I love it. And and I do it with my clients when they're, even if they have an e-collar on and we're doing heel work. I'm like, heel with us for a little bit. Yeah, there you go. Go get the grass and go sniff it. I know you want to sniff that so bad, whatever.
Caroline, pause just for a second and tell the people that don't know what the pre-mac principle is. Will you say that, because they don't, a lot of people don't know what you mean.
So I always, like, how I explain it to my clients is, like grandma's rule, right, is eat your vegetables first, you get dessert after. So for a dog, if we're trying to get, oh, she barking at me, what you want, lady? She's like such a goblin there. But if you're wanting to get your dog to perform, you know, a low probability behavior, right? Something that they're like, oh my God, do I have to sit? Do I have to heel? Like, you know, things that dogs don't really naturally want to do, but you're trying to reinforce it a lot. If we can get the dog to do that for 1 second, real quick, do this thing for me, go get dessert, which dessert could be grass. It could be, go, I'm going to toss this treat for you. I'm going to allow you to go do something you want to do, whatever the dog decides they want to do in that moment. That's the best way I describe pre-racking to my clients. Or I guess another example would be if Onyx is wanting to go chase a squirrel, she sits first, right? And then I send her off to go chase, right? And I'm like, go ahead, go. You sat for me. Thank you. That's your vegetable. Thanks. Go get the squirrel. That's your dessert, right? So that's how I describe it. Does that, I guess, does that answer the question? I think, or
yeah, I think that it was a great way of describing it to people that have never heard of that concept before.
Yeah, I like saying it like that because I would, you know, I have an animal science degree, right? But I'm like, I just want to keep it basic.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I'm like, very easy to understand.
Mm-hmm.
The simpler, the better for me.
For most people,
Onyx has brought this to the chat. Yes.
when you started transitioning how you train, do you feel like you get a different client?
So, you know, I guess that's a really interesting question. Yes, I would say yes. A lot of the clients that I've had, so I only opened up my own dog training business now in December 2023, so almost a year ago. And a lot of those clients, you know, maybe half, I knew from my previous jobs, right? And they were struggling, you know, struggling. Some of them had stopped walking their dogs completely. So how I had once met them, now they were different, right? Now these people were different. There's a shift there, I guess. And as far as like new clients that I haven't really met before, I would say most of them, they truly do want to help their dogs. And they're like, oh my God, please, what information do you have for me? Can you help me? I want to be part of the process. And I don't know if that's because it's just me and I'm by myself and I'm like, you know, it's approachable, it's friendly, we can become a team together versus like a big facility maybe where they get lost in the numbers, right? So uh I guess yes. So there are different types of people. There are some people that don't want to be part of the process. They want to be hands off. They want to just give me the dog and do nothing. But typically I don't really take those clients on because I'm like, you know, I want you to be very much involved, right, in the process. Because that's what matters long term, you know, is just teaching the owner. So but
Well,
yeah, there are
especially if you are going to be using aversives, the idea of a hands-off client makes me very nervous,
right.
because the implication is get the job done and tell me what button to push so that I can keep the job maintained. And that scares me.
Yeah.
It's actually, honestly, my biggest worries about aversive choices are things I've seen.
Totally.
And a lot of what I see is all of the things they know about positive training go out the window. And it's like the cookies get fewer and fewer and fewer, and the button pushers get more and more and more. It's kind of like, I think, and you know, it's hard to speak. I live in one place, in one part of the country, right? So it's very unfair for me to make a generalization, right? Because there's millions and millions and millions of people, right? But I do see that with some people, when you give them some permission to punish, they have a way of going there really fast. And even in myself, like I will use punishers. My dog, admittedly, they're verbal and they're pretty mild. But I have noticed I have to be very, very careful, because I've noticed if the word no comes out of my mouth once in a seminar, it'll probably come out 5 more times.
Right.
And I'll go home that night and I train myself to identify that in myself and to say that was an awful lot of no. I don't like that. I don't want to do that. Where did I go wrong? If I can't figure it out for myself, I have people to talk to. And so this happened yesterday. My dog left me 2-3 times to go to the decoy. That's a no-no. And he came back. I didn't even have to say no. But the thing is, I don't want that to happen. And I sent a note to my friend and I said, I'm not loving this. I'm not loving what I'm seeing here. And she says, well, what are you doing to keep the value high with yourself before you send? And I realized, like, nothing for weeks. Like, I just take him for granted.
Personality is enough.
Well, I thought it was, you know, my my thinking was I'm going to send him to bite. So that's the reason to stay with me. But, and there's a place for that. It's not completely wrong.
Right. Right. Yeah.
But so today I said to my son, who's helping me train my dog, I said, I need you to remind me that the purpose of this session is to raise my value, because I think punishment can be seductive. And while I have some pretty clear lines in the sand that keep me from going very far, I've observed that some people don't have very good lines in the sand whatsoever. And they get very much, well, you know what I want. You understood. Like, there's a justification that goes on in their heads. And while I've not worked with pet clients, except just here and there, very rarely, I saw a couple examples that sort of creeped me out. And the last time I used an e-collar, I was with one of these people, and it was a long time ago. But I gave it to her for recall. We trained it, not as sophisticated as they do today, but we trained the recall in a reasonable way. And then we were having a lesson about something else, and I said, how's that working? And she said, oh, I love it. In the morning when he tries to wake me up too early, I just push the button. And that's the last time. It's the last time I used or gave an e-collar. So I just was like, okay, that's not what that was supposed to be.
Like this commenter just said,
yeah, I wrote it down.
I literally was thinking that too, and before this person said it, J. Robert, but like what he just said is what that client of yours was doing.
Yeah, so I think that that's actually kind of an old, what's the word? It's like a zero-sum statement. So punishing can be reinforcing for the punisher. If like what Denise was just saying, she said no a bunch of times, and she was averse to it because she was like, whoa, it caused her to actually be like, wait a minute, and I'm the same way. I've reached a stage of my development as a person. This is not me virtue signaling. This is just me sharing my story. I've reached a stage of my development as a person where if I'm doing something like that, if I'm punishing and it's getting, I am like, whoa, that went way wrong. I just had to tell him no 7 times. He pulled against the lead. I was way out of my element there, and never, ever, ever do I think that it's my dog's fault. Ever. Recently, I was working on something with my horse, and my daughter's in the arena with me. This is a couple months ago. My daughter's it was about a month ago. My daughter's in the arena with me, and I couldn't, I was getting frustrated, and I started cussing, and like, I don't understand what the fuck he's doing that for, and blah, 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 blah. You know, sitting on the back of this horse, and Layla's like,
she's like, Mom, drink your bubble.
What are you doing? She's very stoic. Yeah, like she's really stoic. Even if she's upset, she's never going to say anything. It's just not her way. But naturally, it's my way. And so I got off, and the next time I got back on, I analyzed what really had happened. And what really had happened was that my horse has had more training than I have had. And he was so sensitive to my seat that I was doing something that was telling him to do something else. And then my arms, because I didn't know, were trying to, and so slowly, because of the punishing that I did, that was punishing. I was not being, that was flat out me using positive punishment because I had lost control and I was not evaluating. I was not with myself.
Right.
Luckily, I have another person with me, so I don't ever do like new stuff on a horse by myself. Not because of safety, I'm insane, but because I know how I am. And I need somebody else to be like, actually, it's because you're doing this. It's not the horse. So maybe don't, you know, with your arms, and then he won't. But it taught me a lot about that, because there was a time in my life that punishing would have been reinforcing to me, especially if that horse had given in to what I wanted because he just happened to get it right. And he gave in, I would have been like, yeah, a firmer hand, you know, and that's just where I was, you know, several years back. But now at this point, when I act that way, I am averse to it. And I'm like, oh my God, I just did all of that And I am the one who's supposed to be the high level thinker with the big fat brain. Horses have like walnut sized brains. They don't even know, like they're just like,
Right.
how can I die? And here I'm getting upset. It was just a lot for me. And I think trainers should just be honest about those times with themselves. Clients should be honest about it. If you're catching yourself spiraling like that, it's not the animal.
Right. No, yeah.
It's not the animal.
And I used to kind of be the same where my fuse was so short. I mean, I grew up with 3 boys, right? It was tough. You know what I mean? It was like, oh my God, everybody's punching each other every day, sometimes, whatever, right? It's just boys. But so my temper was short all the time. And but then when I did KPA, like it really made me take a step back, and when I first tried to actually train my dog in high school, I was like, oh, like we're gonna teach her to jump over this box, whatever. I had no idea what I was doing. I wasn't luring correctly. I wasn't doing anything right. And I got frustrated with her and I gave up in like literally 5 seconds. I was like, she's dumb. Like whatever. And then I was like, all right, she's dumb. It's her, not me, whatever. But then yeah, literally that's how I was in high school. And so I've come a long way, pat myself on the back, but it KPA did take me a step back and was like, you got to be patient. Like literally I couldn't even say really many words to her, right? Because they were worried that your body language and your accidental cues could get in there. So be just reinforce, right? Mark and reinforce is what we were supposed to do, and it was good. But I remember there was one woman in the class in our little group. It was like a group of 5 or 6 or whatever, and she had been training for maybe I think like 15 years or something, and she was trying to change to go more force free from more punishment based, and she had a golden retriever that was pretty shy and scared, and she was just very frustrated throughout the entire course because she had probably been reinforced for years of maybe what that comment where it's like the punishment or it's reinforcing to punish, right, kind of thing. For her, but she wasn't allowed to do that anymore, and it was really hard for her to change. And I saw that and I was like, all right, we as a team, we're going to take it a whole step back and just be patient, very, very patient. And it turned out in our favor. And it literally was therapy, right? It was like therapy, like for us.
Yeah.
And for a long time, it was really great, and then just like I said, circumstances changed, but I don't regret it at all, doing that. And like, even with my clients now, like we're saying the no thing, I do. If they start saying no too much, I stop them. And I'm like, something's wrong, right? Something's wrong here. Like, you need to look at the whole situation and why is the dog now looking a little, a little scared or whatever. Take a step back, right? They're not learning what we want them to learn now. You need to breathe for a second, whatever, something like that. And usually they do. They catch themselves. Sometimes they catch themselves. Sometimes they're not even aware, right, that they're like that. And I'm like, hold on. And then I take the dog and then I show them what they could be doing, and then they copy, and it's fine. But yeah, no, it's what is
It's a fly.
oh
There's a fly.
Oh,
It went over my head.
a
So the
bird.
dog went over my head.
yeah, I'm trying to get that. I'm trying to get that fly.
That's it. Uh-oh, where'd she go?
I'm
She
at
accidentally
risk. He
look,
ate
she
me.
accidentally she knows
She's
she
gone.
accidentally hung up on her.
She's gone.
Listen.
There.
She was doing this and then she accidentally hung up.
He left.
She'll be back.
I think so. I don't get to see the comments on this live for reasons I don't understand.
You don't? Only I can?
I don't
Maybe
know.
I have to make
I
you.
can.
That's really
I'm
weird.
back. I'm back. Whoops. All right, we're not doing that again. That was too risky. The risk was too high there.
Apparently.
Yeah, right.
So, I really do love that you have that basis in positive reinforcement. And I kind of tell people, like, no matter what you end up deciding to do, it's important, I think, to really, really understand good positive reinforcement based dog training, because regardless of where you're going to go next, there are too many trainers out there, and I'm watching them on social media. And the reality is the dog is suffering and struggling. The body language is bad. the quality of the training is poor. They are inadvertently giving one cue with their hand, another one with their mouth, and a third one with their feet, and the dog is paying the price, right? And I have huge issues with this. And often I just think, how did you come up as a dog trainer with so little basic knowledge of dog behavior and the dog is telling you that they're really having a hard time, and the owners, the trainers just cheerfully going over the top of it and explaining these other things. And I'm watching it going, this is so painful. And I really want, if you're going to train dogs, you're going to use aversives. It just seems so fundamental to me to have excellent understanding of your options. Right. You might opt, or your client might opt in a direction maybe I would not opt, but you've got to know the options. And every once in a while, I'll chat with somebody privately, and it's the simplest thing I'll tell them. The simplest thing. And they'll say, I never thought of that. And I'm kind of thinking, that's quite concerning. If you're a professional trainer and you didn't know this, because this is just, in my opinion, a basic technique, something super, that worries me.
Yeah.
And so, it's like, whatever direction you want to go, can you just make sure that you really understand the dog's point of view?
Yeah.
I'm not going to tell, he's going whack over here. I mean, and what I say is tools are legal in this country. Tools are legal. That's it. So I just want people as well educated as possible and with a very clear understanding of the choice you're making today. Is it for the dog? More freedom, for example. Is it for the handler? More safety? Is it for the society? Like, I think those questions are super, super important to have clear.
Yeah.
And then you make your choices and you go your way. But it's just, that was my experience coming on Instagram, because when I was on Facebook, I wasn't following any balance trainers. I didn't even know what a structured walk was. I had no idea what that was about. And then I learned about it a few years ago on TikTok. Jerry can tell you that story. And I was like, well, why would you even do that? Why would you want a dog? And I didn't realize it was like this foundational skill and I'm like, but why? I get it. I understand now. Whether I agree or not doesn't matter, but I understand it. But I was shockingly oblivious to what was going on out there because I had no reason to pay attention to it. I know a lot now. Some things I wish I didn't know, but I definitely am much more versed on where training is at, where it's improved quite a bit that I was just not aware, where in my opinion, maybe it's degraded. But it's that's kind of my perspective. If somebody's like, I'm thinking about using tools, I'm like, you know what? I hope you have a really good grounding in positive options first. Then,
I don't
you
think
do what you're going to do.
A couple people are asking, is there such a thing as fully tools free, fully tools? I don't know where you would get away with that. I think, I know Denise and I are definitely have dogs off leash a lot. Like, my dog's almost always off lead unless I actually think I'm going to get in trouble for it. Right.
I never train off leash. I don't train on leash.
Dangerous.
The only reason my dog's on a leash is to walk.
Right.
But all of our training is off leash, which oddly enough, for like the first time yesterday, I almost put him on leash for a training reason. Simply to prevent him from going to the decoy before I cued, but I never, ever, ever do that. I use distance, I use and I didn't end up using the leash just because where the hell is it? Like, it's never where I want it when I need it. So that was that. But I think I know where you're going. Like a tool, but I walk him like a pet dog. He's on a leash. And sometimes he puts tension on that leash. I don't think he cares, but it's a tool in the sense that everything we use between us and the dog is a tool. But I'm trying to be clear. I can be more clear. I'm referring more to tools that the dog determines are aversive. So when I say tool, that's what I'm talking about.
Right. Yeah.
When your dog walks by in the background, I expect it to come out right here.
to your,
I saw your dog walk by.
Look at her.
Dog's walking by.
Little goblin girl back there. She is glowing in her eyes in the back. Yeah. But I guess like well, for all the dogs I work with, right, it's all family dog, pet dog, kind of thing. And of course for us, right, we are trying to be as safe as possible, and so we'll use leash, we'll use gear, harness, tools, whatever, everything, mainly, right, because the owners, they feel better, right, with their dog attached to them, of course. And so rarely ever, there was maybe 2 dogs, well, one of them they're both very well tempered, to both golden retrievers. You know, the one lives near a farm, and the other one, oh, need to get out of here, please.
Are you
But
having
anyway,
trouble, or is it
am I
me?
in trouble?
No, I'm having a hard time here. Oh, you're back. Okay, you're good now.
Okay.
I think it's maybe on my side.
Okay. But both of those guys, we work off leash, right, with those two. But to me, because I'm like, these owners are responsible, these dogs are appropriate, right, to be off leash. It's all fine and dandy. Now, the other 99% of my clients, I'm like, I don't trust you with your dog off leash. You know, I just don't, right? So I'm not gonna, yeah, right. I'm not gonna tell you to do that, because that would be irresponsible of me, and it could put your dog at great risk. And so
that's what long lines are for.
right, long
That's
lines
what
are
long lines
great,
are
and
for.
we
Yeah.
love long lines. Yeah, so you know, that's fine, right? And I'm totally for that. And people do love that too, right? Where they're like, oh my God, you mean I can put my dog, they can be 20 feet away from me and we could still train? And I'm like, yeah, you can do that. So I think like so much of this stuff too is very foreign, right, to dog owners. They're just not aware, right? Like the three of us are so in depth on the social media with the dog training and all that. We know all these things, we know all these little things, but most dog owners, you know, they might not even know they can say yes, right, to their dogs, right? I just had a client the other day, right, that was like, I was like, I was like, what does she know? What have you taught her, right? What have you taught your dog? And they're like, well, she hears no a lot. And I was like, all right, well, we're gonna change that. I was like, all right, we're gonna change that now. Yeah, does she know yes? Yeah. And they're like, oh no, she doesn't know. I'm like, all right, let's start there, right? Poor dog, right? Let's start there. And so, you know, and I always say more yes moments than no as much as possible. Like, you know, I get it, right? The owners are changing too. And that's why I like it too, where it's all like, we're very small. I feel like I'm part of their team. I let them text me. I'm like, what question, you know, anything, right? I'm like, just let me know and I will help you. If you feel like you're saying no too much, like, here's a list of moments of yes, right, that you can be saying. And I make them put reinforcement jars in their house. Right? I'm like, here, put these jars around your house, look for all of these moments, tell them yes, and go give them that little piece of food. Easiest thing you can do, right? And
I have clients all the time that I'm like, you are going to have to make a list of wins, because I can already tell where your mind's going, you little overanalyzer, you little worrywart. For the last 3 days, you told me 15 things that have gone wrong, but I watched the same video that I watched, and it looked lovely. Yeah. And you're freaking out about, and it's just, I think a lot of people, especially my clients, the people that come to me are ready because they know exactly what's going to happen. If they're, you know, if they don't show up, if they whatever. So they're ready and they're willing. And definitely the overarching theme that I see is true ignorance. They're like, what are you talking about? And these are people, right. I rarely have a client that has not been to a trainer. Most of my clients have been to multiple trainers. And I ask them, okay, well, let's talk about your dog's feelings or body language or arousal or fear, and they have no idea what I'm talking about. They've never heard these things ever. Right. Never. Right. And the only people that have heard them came from what they describe as a force-free trainer. But I often hear that they felt that training was disconnected. They didn't feel like it was applicable to them, which is crazy, because then I turn around and do the same thing. I'm not saying anything revolutionary like throw your food at exactly a 2-degree angle and then, you know, I'm just saying the same thing as your average trainer that would be looking at what would be considered force-free education. Right. So what is that? What's happening for them? And they are seeming to have access more times than not to trainers that really lack any sort of kind of formal education and are much more tool-based. I'm not saying that there's, I have friends, you're sitting there, there's tons of trainers that use tools ethically, but I want to make sure that in dog training that we're not doing the not all cops, not all men, not all, and then we just don't do reform because we're like, well, it's not everybody. Well, right. But it's an issue. That are perpetrating it or making a big old problem. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I do say this a lot. I'm a fan of cleaning up my own house. I really try to focus on my community because I think it's weird to have a messy community and worry about the others. Like that is so, it's just, it's so rampant on social media. The amount of time
one person in particular.
Well,
sorry.
Okay, so like now then, Jerri.
I know. Keep going.
Feel like I look around and I think it's, when people are shitting on you, I'm like, guys, this has been true for years. This is not, I just kind of feel like if you've got significant issues in communities that you actually care about, that you're vested in, it's better to focus on making your community the best it can be. And later on, if you get that good, then you can worry about other people. But I don't know. That's kind of the whole judgment thing. Like, I got plenty of my own problems. I don't need to worry about yours yet. But when I'm all that, I'll be worried about your problems.
Well, in recovery, that's what we learn. We learn to take our own inventory. And then when you get far enough into recovery, what you just said happens. Your sponsor will look at you and go, well, why don't you just take their inventory then, Jerri? And I'm here, I am 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 years sober. And I'm like, well, and then I get, and instead of them being like, you should look at your behavior, they'll turn it around and go, well, if you know so much, why don't you just take their inventory for them? And then, isn't that great? And it's really right sizing. It right sizes your ego to remember that even all of the doctrines of religion say that. Like everywhere we go, it's always clean your side of the street, clean house, help others. These are all like really common themes of successful communities where people are changing.
One of the wonderful things about being reasonably well known on social media is that other people know you better than you know yourself. Like you can go on social media and read all about yourself if you wish regularly, and they've got it all worked out. Like they know about your ego, they know about your money-driven nature.
Well, people like to talk about you.
And with such confidence. And my favorite ones are the ones who have sympathy for your problem. So they are with great sympathy saying, well, she's feeling shame because, and you're kind of, I'm eating the popcorn, right? Because I don't know, I'm pretty transparent about who I am. And I'm sitting there going, this is amazing. Like, I'm getting analyzed by a person I've never met. I have no knowledge of, but they have it wired down to when I was 2 years old. I mean, it's just like, it's incredible.
Yeah.
I could save myself a lot of time and effort if I would just let social media explain it all to me. And then, of course, they know how to fix me too.
Yeah.
It's just, now I figure I got to solve myself. And then people ask me, well, why does this person do that? I'm like, how could I know that? I am not that person. I can tell you some of the things that occur to me, but how can I know why another person is making, I don't know, maybe they were abused as a 2-year-old, but I'm not going to make that assumption because I don't really have, I need better information.
Right.
But that's why I look at my community and I say, this is some issues I see. I want to talk about them.
Yeah.
I don't want to do too much of that with the balance. The only time it's been coming up lately with the balance community is people ask me, why are you against tool use? And it's very hard for me to answer that question without saying things that some people are going to be offended by. So, like I just said, I think there's a whole lot of rampant misuse from people who are not educated enough. So I don't like saying that because that's me shitting on somebody else's house. But I get asked the question. So then I'm kind of like, well, I'm not going to lie. I'm not going to evade the question.
I don't think that we should.
So I just try to be really neutral and just say, this is what I see. I don't like this. I don't like it. And that's where my perspective is coming from. And I also recognize that a lot of the, assumptions, right? Like assuming, they never apply to everyone. Like you said, not all men. And you start to say, well, how many people does this represent and how severe is it, right? Is it a minor transgression or is it the kind of thing that stops you cold? Like board and train, great example. So you got this guy in Alabama who killed a dog, right?
Jeff McArthur.
It's horrible.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So does that mean all board and trains are terrible? No. But do I think there's enough of an issue with board and train that we all need to be standing up and taking a really hard look? Yes, I actually do. I think there's enough going on. I've heard enough. I believe enough that there's a problem. Like something needs to be done about the board and train situation. But when I say that, I'm not saying that all board and trains are bad. I don't even want to imply that. I'm just saying that it's not a little abuse. Dogs are dying. They're dying.
Yeah,
This isn't a
regularly,
problem.
regularly.
Yes. So even if it's only 1 in 1,000, that's not acceptable. You can't have 1 in 1,000 board and trains where dogs die. It's too big, and so those are hard. Those are, I don't know, hard things for that's where our industry should be coming together. Dogs are dying.
Yeah. Well,
right.
Yeah. I mean, the business model for pet dog training has long been in a particular kind of methodology is the board and train. Is I am the fixer, I am the knowledge keeper, give me your dog, pay me your money, and the dog will come back like this. And then the language used around it is setting a foundation. There's language that's regularly used around it to market it. And while there are people that do great board and trains, those are not the people that are speaking out against board and trains. It's the people like myself or Denise or whoever that don't do them that are like, what's the deal? I used to do them and I stopped doing them because I saw that it was not accomplishing anything. It was accomplishing me being great with someone else's dog for 3 or 4 weeks, and then me giving them back to that person, and no amount of me giving them 2-hour classes or 1-hour classes was going to replace what had happened during that time. And the reason that I know that is that principle is carried from recovery. You cannot take somebody and put them in a very, 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 very small percentage of people, very small, will come out, go into an inpatient rehab, go back home, and nothing changes and they're fine. We're talking an almost not measurable percentage of people. I can't think of one person, but they're probably out there. So if we know that sentient beings cannot change that way, then it kind of applies across the board, especially when we're talking so much about relationship, because the dog is with a steward, generally always just one, or one in the family that they're closer to. That is not an issue that is solved with removing the dog out of the home and the problematic problem, unless there's a genuine need for a reset there, and the mental health of the dog parent is suffering so greatly that they're getting to the point where they can't function and they can't do anything in their life. In those situations, to me, that's like considering an aversive tool. It may not be what I choose, it may not be what I like, but given everything in front of me, is it a viable option for this dog to have some improvement and for the whole situation to have relief? But that takes a lot of consideration. That's very different than come to me and I will see your dog in 3 weeks. And then that's the practice. That's the practice. That's the practice. It's a business model. And because that's what's out there and that people can see, that's what the trainer coming up who's not qualified, who's going to just, I'm a dog trainer now, is going to trend towards, because they see that price point. And then you've got dog training business people who teach how to charge $7,000 for a board and train. And they're not per dog trainers per se. I mean, I see them all the time. I see them marketing all the time.
Yeah, we get those ads.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for sure. I've seen those. Yeah. I mean, y'all, you reminded me of something I was going to say. What one of y'all were saying. Oh, man, now I forget. But it was something to do with, I don't know, using no and stuff like that, kind of circling back to that topic. But I guess some people are talking about rehome and things. So my girlfriend works, she's an animal cruelty investigator. So she sees a lot of stuff. Yeah, God bless. She has one of the hardest jobs on this planet. Yeah, right. I'm like, she's our hometown hero, but it's a hard job, right? And a lot of it too is, there's so many problems with what's going on in that world. And I guess like when part of all this stuff was going on with me kind of transitioning about everything too, it came up where I was like, well, if this owner, maybe if they're allowed to kind of give a little bit of a no here, like in this situation, then maybe they'll feel a little bit better about continuing to work with their dog, right? And then we're not going to see this dog go back to the shelter and like go back to like whatever hell they came from. You know what I mean? Like stuff like that. And so for me, I mean, it kind of gave me a little window, right? Where I was like, let's just a couple of no's here and there, but I want you to do more yes moments. And then in my brain, I'm thinking, maybe this kind of saved the dog from having to go down a route that my girlfriend sees every day. You know what I mean? Just like, so that's kind of where I was changing to,
I can
right? You know,
understand
it's kind of where I was,
that. Yeah.
because it was a lot of time, you know, I meet a lot of dog parents who were so, what you were talking about, frustration and like sending off to board and train, you know, like how the owner is really in a bad spot, right? And they're like, should I consider this now? And so I meet a lot of people like that. And I was like, but it was when it was purely more force free, and I'm like, like I mean, I don't think you need to. You can weigh your options out. Not every board and train's created equal, of course, and you know there are some great ones out there, and then there's some that are just like, oh my God, who even are you? What are you doing? But I was like, if we can maybe implement a little boundary here with some kind of a no, but more yes, will you feel better, right? And then you know, most of the time, then they don't feel like they need to send their dog off like that, or they might not be super like ready to get rid of the dog, right? Like they might try it or something. So I don't know, I just it kind of, my girlfriend's world and my world, they overlap a little bit, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so we get these clients and these dogs and stuff, but anyway, you just reminded me of that, but same anyway. Yeah,
Well, we've been chattering for a while.
we have.
And it's time for me to go to the barn. And we talked about some really great stuff and unraveled some things that I think a lot of times are kept in private conversation between dog trainers. Why did you change? Why, you know, what were your decisions? And let's just talk about them out in the open, and then people can know, and then they can make more informed decisions for themselves.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And I suspect all of us are going to be hearing about this conversation.
Yeah.
And that's okay. Right. So if it helps,
the
let me just
favorite thing is you're platforming people that have verses.
Exactly. And all I'm going to say is listen. Just listen to what people have to say. You can have opinions or whatever, but the first thing about bridges and understanding is you've got to just listen, not to change anybody, just to understand, because if you listen and understand, they will listen to you and they will understand you.
Yeah.
That's where you start. When you go in with well, I've been talking and they're not listening. I've done 10 years trying to tell them. I'm like, do you hear what you're saying? Like, slow it all down and listen to how you sound. Because frankly, nobody made you the queen, right? Like, you have no more power over any other person on this planet. You're just so that's why I'm thrilled that you're here with us. Let's just listen. What do people have to say? You know, and I'm thrilled that you were here, and I appreciate your story very much.
Oh, this was so fun. And this is literally like, I've been dying to like say something, and Jerri knows, right? But like, I've been dying to finally say something about this because I've been thinking about it for so long. I'm like, oh my gosh, I need to make a video like talking about this, because I'm sure like a lot of people are in the same boat, right? Like about everything. It's just all, dog training is the Wild West, like we know, right? And it's just like, oh my God, difficult. And then you feel alone sometimes, but if you have your community, if you have everybody who's just willing to listen, like you're saying, it just makes everything so much better. And like you feel like maybe you don't want to leave the industry, right? Because there are a lot of talented trainers out there, I'm sure, who feel like maybe I should leave because I'm not doing things right or whatever. But it's like, no, like maybe you are. You can find out what works for you, and as long as you're just trying to get as much education as possible, and then you're trying to put that on with the owner and just be a team, I think it works well. And that's what's been working for me, and why I stayed too, and because of you guys, right? Where it's like, you know, a lot of people would give me so much shit, right? about changing and stuff, and I was like, okay, well, you know, you don't know my whole, you act like you know my story, right? Like again, in the comments, you think you know me, but you don't, right? And so it's this was good to kind of talk about it and get it out. And this is part of the reasons why I literally tried to make a list on my phone this week about like all the reasons so I could talk to you guys about it. So I didn't even get to all of them, but you know, yeah, anyway, so this was very good, and I'm super honored to talk to both of you, and this was fun. Yeah.
Excellent. Well, very nice to meet you. Very nice to see you again, Jerri.
Yeah, you too, Denise. I'll see you around. I'll see both of you.
I'll see you both around.
Bye, guys.
That's right.
Have a
Yes.
good evening.
Good night,
We'll see you guys
everybody.
later. Good
Thanks,
night.
Caroline.
Bye. Thank